Your reaction from what the Wolverines did down in Columbus last Saturday?
You know what's funny? I mean, obviously, the tremendous second half, as well as I've ever seen a Michigan team play against Ohio State, especially down there, of course. But watching the football, the playoff ranking show last night, do you know what they've sort of subtly done? And I think it's subtly nudging people to accept Ohio State being in the playoff. On several occasions, and I listened to the Boo Kerrigan, the chairman's press conference afterwards, they're really kind of I keep hearing, well, but Ohio State, it was a 22-point, but that was a very, very tight game. They're basically trying very hard to convince people that a 22-point loss at home wasn't as bad as a 22-point loss at home looked.
Oh, it's only because they only gave up 2 big plays. I mean, come on.
That's part of what they certainly. Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, desperately wants 2 teams in, and that was a great football, epic football. And I mean, it was big, but you can't say it was an epic back and forth. Here's a rallying game, whatever. I don't care personally if Ohio State gets in. The big debate will be if they get in even after TCU loses. One would be 12-1, one would be 11-1, and in that case, I think they're putting Ohio State in.
Well,
no, wait, how did I end up?
You think they're getting in over TCU or USC? It's got to be USC that loses for Ohio State to get in.
Oh no, that's a given. Yeah, if USC loses, Ohio State's in. I'm saying if USC wins and TCU loses, that's a hot debate.
I don't think there's any way that Georgia, Michigan, or TCU drop out of the top 4.
I think there's a way for TCU, not Michigan or Georgia. And you know what? You know what's weird? This could all basically be over Friday night.
Yes.
USC plays Utah. And the percentages, I saw a percentage, they still have like 71% chance that Ohio State gets in. That's because you've got Utah very capable of beating USC, already did earlier this year. And TCU and Kansas State. TCU really had to rally to beat Kansas State earlier in the year. So I do think the 4 you have now is not going to be the 4 that it ends up being. One of those, someone's going to drop out with a loss because I don't think they're both. And you know what? If TCU beats Kansas State, or rather, if Kansas State beats TCU 42-21, would you change your mind about not dropping TCU out?
No, because they already beat them once. And I still think, okay, I would move them down to 4. And if USC wins, you could bump them up to 3. Yeah. But I don't think I'd move them out.
Because especially since they talk about strength of schedule and TCU's strength of schedule, especially if they lose to Kansas State, who their ranking would go up, is a stronger schedule, than Ohio State.
Okay, but I think that's a little misleading. They beat 5 ranked teams at the time, but all of those ranked teams have 4 losses, except for one, which has 3, Kansas State. They did not turn out, say with Ohio State, Notre Dame ended up being a 4-loss team. I mean, going back to Michigan, Ohio State of the teams in there probably has the best loss. I mean,
Correct.
Losing to the number 2 team.
Correct.
And listening again to the thing, I get a feeling no matter how dominant or moderately dominant you think Michigan was against Ohio State, I think the committee is not considering it that close between Michigan and Georgia. Just listening to Boo Corrigan's comments, we saw nothing to move Georgia down. And, of course, Michigan had a great performance, and they always go back to the non-conference schedule, which is fine. I mean, Michigan brought that upon themselves. But are you really breaking it down to who fits where based on 3 or 4 games in September? You know what I mean? Like if they had squeaked out, I understand they should be downgraded for the non-conference schedule, but go back and look at Georgia's schedule and the Oregon win. Well, obviously dominant and nice. Oregon has 3 losses. I'm just saying it could be close between Michigan and Georgia based on how they play on Saturday, but I think Georgia's pretty much set at number 1.
I think they got it completely right yesterday.
Yeah, I think they did too. And I'll use the question, would you rather if there's going to be another matchup, Michigan versus Ohio State in the college football playoffs this year, one, are you okay to see that again? And two, would you rather it be in the national championship game, or are you okay with it happening in the semifinal game?
No, it should be in the national championship game. And I do think if they can, I mean, they give themselves wiggle room to massage the order of the top four to avoid maybe in the semifinals an unfavorable matchup. I think that would be bad to have Michigan Ohio State play again right away in the semis. If they both earn their way to the title game, then fine, go at it, have everything. But didn't we just spend a week saying, Michigan has stomped Ohio State, reclaimed the rivalry, the Buckeyes are dead, and then a month later, they reclaimed it right back. I mean, would that count as reclaiming the rivalry back if they beat Michigan in the semis? I don't like rematches, and like Alabama Georgia rematch last. I don't like those, especially in the semifinals. If they make it to the championship game, then so be it.